Good evening, everyone. As Usher says, it's 7 o'clock on the dot. so let's get this thing started. This is a very special IG live. I like to think all my IG lives are special, but this one's super special, and it's because I'm collaborating with three amazing SLPs who are panelists tonight. But because of the topic is super important. We are going to be discussing the what, when, and how of change and leadership in the American Speech Language Hearing Association. So what we know as Asha. So get you something good to eat. Get you something good to sip on. A notepad if you'd like. And yeah, let's just really have a great, healthy, robust dialogue tonight. Let me pin the topic and let my panelist in. How about we do that first? Accept. All right. Hello. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
I was not going to introduce you guys because you guys are going to introduce yourselves.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Oh, I can start. Hey, everybody. This is Megan Berg, and I'm the founder of Therapy Insights. I'm also a speech-language pathologist in Western Montana, and I work PRN at a skilled nursing facility. And I'm here because I want to learn more. I feel like we're living in an age where we want to see a lot of change in our systems and in our institutions. And it can be kind of frustrating because that change can be really slow. And I think the only way that change does happen is if we really understand how these systems and institutions work, so that we can use our skills and our knowledge and our energy and our time to push for change. And so my intention of being here tonight is really just to learn. I'm here to ask questions and learn from people who have done all of the work to really understand how Asha works, with the hope that I can be part of change in the future. So thanks to all of you for being here, and super honored to be included. And yeah, I'm just here to learn. So thanks, Dana.
Awesome. Well, I kind of skipped myself. I guess I should introduce myself.
Yeah.
So I'm Dana, the Neuro SLP, the host of this discussion tonight. And I've just been so inspired by everybody with the messaging and the tags and the advocacy work and the interest, the curiosity, right? About our national organization. And so I am honored to have you guys tonight to ask some tough questions, get information, but also identify solutions. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being a part of it. Dr. Williams.
Hi, I'm Treasure Williams Wood, and I'm so excited to be here. This really came about in a really funny way. Dana got sick of me bombing her other lives. It was like, let's just have a separate one since you go cut up.
Like part two.
Yeah. But I think most people know that I'm invested in this in two ways. I am a member of Asha. I also am a practicing clinician, and I also am in academia and work in a leadership capacity. So those all intersect with me just being kind of sick of the shit in terms of what is going on, in terms of really some intentional constructive feedback kind of always being washed out as they're just complaining, that has really got me fired up and just ready for some meaningful, substantive change within our governing body and an organization that we all pay to be a part of. So I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois. What other questions were in the introduction? I forgot. Was
That's
that
good. That's good.
I'm gonna try, I'm gonna tell you all now, I live in the south side of Chicago. Profanity is one of my dialects. I also speak sarcasm fluently. I'm gonna try to keep it really clean and PG.
Be yourself. We want everybody to be themselves.
We're gonna keep it real tonight.
But I'm very excited to be here because I think that this is such an opportune time that we have to catalyze some things that are happening where people want to put words into action. So really happy to be here.
Awesome. And last but not least,
I'm Rinki, Varindani, Desai. You know what I love is I was hoping nobody does like a one-line introduction and just says, I'm an SLP, here's where I work, because I think it's really important for people watching to know why we're here sharing our perspectives, how they relate to us, how we represent them. We're not just someone on the outside looking in. We're all part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. And I think we all are at the point in our careers where we're like, enough is enough. And I feel the same way. So thank you to Dana and Megan for inviting me. I'm an adult medical speech pathologist. I'm originally from Mumbai in India. And I think that's important because when I got into speech pathology, my dream was to come to the United States of America and be an Asha certified CCC SLP. That's what made me leave my home, come to this country, because you have this vision of what Asha was supposed to be. And I think what a lot of people living here probably don't realize is America on a broader global perspective has that place and that influence. So the decisions that are made here don't just impact clinicians here, they impact clinicians and students and people around the world, because the ripple effects of those decisions are felt, again, by clinicians and patients around the world. So that's what brought me here. I've been an adult medical SLP and a full-time clinician in 3 different states across different medical settings. And again, because of my desire to serve and be a part of Asha, I started volunteering with them pretty fresh out of grad school. So I've been volunteering with Asha in different capacities since almost a decade now. And then a couple of years ago, I co-founded the Swallowing Training and Education Portal with Dr. Yanessa Humbert. I think she's joined the live today. So we wanted to create a solution to provide affordable, accessible dysphagia education to clinicians. I founded the Medical SLP Forum, which is a free Facebook group for over 40,000 medical SLPs to come together, share resources, discuss solutions. And then in my current position, I'm the adult outpatient lead at the University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, Mississippi. And on the Asha side, I'm on the Scientific and Professional Education Board. It's called Asha SPEB. And I'm the associate coordinator of SIG 13, which is the special interest group in swallowing. And again, before we dive in, I'm here today because I think that being part of being a clinician, being an educator and supervisor, being a business owner now for 5 years with Dr. Humbert, and then serving as part of state and Asha, our national association, as a volunteer, just allows me this unique perspective and lens to see the same issues from 4 different sides and realize that what all the challenges are and realize what the barriers are. But I think that also allows you to know that there's so much we can do to change things and become part of the solution. So again, I'm excited to be here and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that was beautiful. Okay, so I know where to start, but I want to kind of start somewhere else and reiterate what you said about the world is watching us, right? Like how you came here in hopes of being a member of this organization, right? And I think, I don't know, I think some people in our field are apathetic towards Asha. Some people are frustrated with Asha. Some people think there's nothing wrong with Asha. It's doing everything right. So we have these different perspectives, right? And I'm embarrassed to admit that when I got my C's, when I entered Asha and got my C's, I was apathetic because I didn't know of it being an organization that could do anything for me or help me in any way besides I pay my dues, they send me my C's, and that's it. And over the years, I have grown more sensitive to the fact that this could be better. They could do more, right? I could be involved more. Like, it doesn't have to be this distant relationship or this parent daughter kind of authoritarian relationship. It's a team effort. And so I think that's especially why we're here today, because we know that things can improve. We know that change can occur. We know that Asha could be better. And so, all right. So,
The
yeah.
wood, other wood just said they equals us, and I love that. And I just want to like send shine to something Rinki just said, which I thought was amazing. Is that we are a part of the problem and we are a part of the solution. I think a lot of times we go into situations and we go, oh, they're not letting us do that. They're not letting us do that. But a part of the reason that I'm here, and I think we're all here, is that we've all been at a point where we're like, I don't even know what Asha doing. Then we're a part of the problem, because anything else I pay for, I know what it's doing. So
exactly.
ever find ourselves a moment where we're unhappy with something, if I didn't know what was happening with my phone bill, I'm like, wait, nope, I know exactly what to do, because I'm paying for it, right? So we have to have that moment, like you said, Rinki, where we take that accountability and go, okay, so am I gonna keep riding this train that I paid a ticket for and not give it any direction, or am I just gonna be a passive rider and a passive member and just kind of talk about how much I don't like things, but then continue to be complicit by paying my money and letting other people who are harmful in the organization be elected to these positions and not run for anything or advocate in any way. So I think that was really powerful. Thank you for making that
Can I
point.
could I offer a different perspective, just a little bit, just so we're thinking about this from sometimes the they is not us perspective? Because I feel like as a volunteer for 8 years, I felt they is us, which is why I gave hours of my time, unpaid time, to dedicating everything to Asha. Asha has about 45 committees and councils, most of which are run by volunteers. There's very few people who are on the national staff serving on these committees, and they have an ex officio. They have someone who serves as a liaison between the committees and the board. But it's really most of us just member volunteers, again, putting in hours of our time and effort to create change. And what I have been disappointed with as a volunteer for just issue over issue, year after year, is that we're doing everything right. But when it comes to making those decisions, the board of directors, the people in charge, the red tape, the processes are not allowing those volunteer efforts to see the day of light. They say, oh, but we recognize your issues, but there's only so much we can do, because they're not representing the majority. Or maybe they are representing the majority, rather they're not representing the change, the diverse needs of medical SLPs, the diversity in our clinicians. They're not recognizing how the world is changing, because the same old people have been leading for so long. So is they really us? Because we want change, and they're not creating
really
they're not allowing us to do that.
Well, for me, you raised a really powerful point. My response to that is yes, and because as a member, and so I didn't give my background at Asha. I have held volunteer positions. I've probably been on every committee you can think of. At one point, I was on a member of 4 SIG groups and on the committee for every single one of them. I'm currently on the professional development committee for Asha right now, and I'm on the professional development committee for the neuro SLP SIG2 group, CAA. I mean, every single alphabet you can think of, I've been on. And what my experience has been the same, where I felt very burnt out. I felt very dejected. But I also have noticed, and this is just my experience, that as a person of color, especially, and an underrepresented person within Asha, that there's like the same 60 volunteers doing everything in Asha. And I don't blame them for that. I know that there are some things that if you don't feel like your values and things are appreciated in the line, then you don't feel compelled to engage. But I did feel that, I mean, I almost got kicked out, to be honest with you. I almost got kicked out of the group last week for like just getting so frustrated about it was something so simple. We wanted to have this activity in the SIG group, and they said, okay, well, Asha's going to let you give away a learning pass. And we said, okay, well, how many can we give away? We want to have 2 people do this activity. So if we have 2 winners, can we have 2 people get the learning pass? And they were like, oh, no, Asha can't pay for 2 learning passes. And I was like, what the hell? What you mean Asha can't? And then there's like, Dr. Williams, calm down. But again, this was a group of volunteers, right, coming together to organize this. And like you said, you have something that was like, they said you can't do it. But then I go, well, who was they? Like you say, and then you say board. But who elects the board? The 6% of people who vote. So that's that they is us, where I mean, there are 208,000 members in this organization. So when I say they is us, I don't necessarily mean the 50 to 100 people who keep volunteering for everything, because those are the people that are doing like the crux of the work. I'm talking about, even if you're not in a volunteer space, somebody is electing board members over and over. And so that is the day. So my thing is, if we only have 6% of people who vote in Asha, right? You might not be the person that volunteers. That might not be your space, but 6% of 208,000 people are deciding who's on the board, who keeps things from people like you and other volunteers, things from seeing the light of day. So I think that's why I would say it's a yes and.
Yeah.
So this, I want to go ahead, Megan. I want to back up though, because I know there are a lot of students, a lot of grad students, undergrads, and this is their introduction. And so I want to make sure that we rewind before we get too far and kind of state what Asha is, what it is not, and then kind of go from there. I want to set the stage. So, what is Asha? Who is Asha? My mama calls it Asha.
Asha.
Sophisticated.
Hey, mama, she's watching. Go ahead. So who is Asha?
So Asha is a nonprofit organization, okay, and they purport that we are a part of Asha. So Asha is a nonprofit organization that its mission is to promote the interest and provide the highest quality services for professionals in audiology, SLP, and also speech and hearing science, right? Yeah. Also, their mission is to advocate for people with communication disabilities. So that is the mission of the organization.
Okay, and then who are the members? We are the members, right?
Mm-hmm. Speech language, future or aspiring speech language pathology and audiology students, speech and hearing science scientists, and Dr. Huber says definitely for profit. It's a nonprofit organization by IRS designation, but
it does cost, so we have to pay dues.
But I do have Asha's report, their financial reportings up on the screen. I'm going to drop in the chat when we get to that. Because I think there are going to be some very powerful things to reflect on when we talk about how IRS companies that claim nonprofit status kind of move around and circumvent those types of things in their financial statements to have corporate partnerships and things like that could be in conflict of interest with the members. So we'll share
members.
And Asha also gets benefits again from the IRS for being what they call a certification organization, which is very different from the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and other medical associations. They're not just a membership association. We pay dues to be members, but most of us pay dues to keep up with our Cs. And Asha really is, at the end of the day, it seems like it's becoming more and more a certification organization versus an association that's here just for its members and to advance the profession.
So let me ask you this. Is Asha membership required to practice as an SLP?
No.
Okay.
And not many people know this. Yeah, it's
It's
just
not-
not common knowledge.
You can be a non-member. You can be
Okay.
and still hold Cs. You can
Okay.
also not to have anything to do with it and just go for state licensure.
Okay.
Um, but a lot of us, especially those of us in medical settings, as I know your medical setting, we're all actually, we have 3 neuro people, which is wild. You would be hard pressed if you Google any job posting to find a job posting that did not require the C's.
Yeah,
It required that an employer, right? And Asha did require the C's up until somebody sued them for this reason about 23 years ago. And that's when they designated the separation. But because they have established themselves and kind of have that monopoly on the market, every employer you go to kind of follows. Like they're like, oh, PT got this, OT has this, oh, Asha, okay, yep, we'll just require their thing.
yeah.
And so it's very difficult. And maybe people in the chat can chime in if you are not a member and you still practice, and you can talk about, your experience finding employment
Yeah,
without them.
that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, I think every job I've ever had has asked to see my Asha card. I've had to, and when it's time to renew, they ask to see a receipt or
Hmm.
a new card. So,
And
yeah,
to flip it, I'm sorry to cut you off, Dana. Go ahead.
no, I was done.
To flip it, so right now I carry a caseload. I run a free clinic in the South in Chicago that is tied to a university program where I also am the director of clinical education. So because I'm tied to a university program, and that is under CAA, right? We cannot hire anyone to teach that doesn't have their C's.
Yeah,
Right, because in order to maintain your accreditation, even in the Council on Accreditation and Academic Programs for Communicative Sciences and Disorders, even if a person isn't practicing, they could be a tenure track faculty and everything. They have to have their C's. So we've had wonderful, amazing applicants from other countries apply, and they would be teaching, and they have to have their C's, and so we couldn't even consider their applications.
I'm thinking about how that
I was like, blink, blink,
gatekeeping.
blink, blink.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how that when people come from other countries and they don't have, like, how that is not inclusive.
No, so it's a lot of bottlenecking in terms of saying, oh, we want to invite people to the table, but we're not going to give them a seat. In terms of when we look at global, like
Mm-hmm.
incorporating people with this global citizens into how we do didactic teaching. Um, there are so many people I would love to hire, but if they don't have their C's, it's written into the job description because you have to have you have to have all faculty with their C's to get CAA accreditation.
Some people might argue that this is gatekeeping. What would you say to
Some,
someone who said that?
I would say yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it's also a misalignment, I think, of people who are leading, again, coming back to that, versus actual clinicians and students. Like, whoever's on the CEA changes every year, the Council for Accreditation, the people who decide the requirements for clinical certification. If they're saying 51% of your educational force needs to have PhDs, how many people in our field have PhDs? And how many people among those can teach all of dysphagia in one semester, all of voice and all of motor speech? So now you have one PhD that the university has managed to find, who has their C's and is probably doesn't even need to keep up with their C's to teach because they're not seeing patients. And now they're teaching like 3 different subjects. They haven't seen real world patients in the longest time. Just because somebody on the CAA thinks we need 51% of educators to have a PhD, whereas I think PhD has its place. I have great respect for that degree, but I also know clinicians who would make amazing educators if given the opportunity, and they end up being hired as adjunct professors and make a ridiculously low amount of money to do their job. So there's just, it's
Mm.
not even gatekeeping. I think nobody has spoken up enough or done enough to change things because it just benefits the majority or somebody sitting up in leadership thinking things are okay the way they are, let's not bother
Yeah.
changing anything.
That's so true. And so Dr. J.C., your fave SOP says, I've worked in academia. I've had tenure faculty without their seat. They weren't able to supervise, but were still able to teach. This was 2012, 2016. When did this requirement change? So this is really important to know because I am a part of a brand new speech language pathology program. So we are up for accreditation now. We are going through the new. So if you look at the new accreditation process now, this is what's being asked of us. So we are it's a 5-year process. We're in year 2. So it takes a program, I believe, 5 years to be fully accredited. You do your site visits. And so we are actively dealing with these things. And to speak to your point, Rinki, with the PhDs, I think one of the most frustrating things is that saying, okay, 51% of your program has PhDs. However, like you said, not only how many people have one, but also how many people from underrepresented backgrounds have one.
Yeah.
How many underrepresented, groups have been able to go and take off and find funding and do all of these things and not practice and do a full-time PhD and then can come back and do this. We're looking for tenure track faculty right now, specifically in these core content areas. And we have zero job applicants. Like nobody can apply. Nobody. Because if they do apply, they either don't have their C's or they haven't been here or they have a clinical doctorate and not this doctorate. And so it's just very difficult, like you said, because we are not training people to be teachers, right? Our system is not set up to train speech language pathologists if they want to go into teaching and pedagogical type work to do that. We don't train people to become business people. We don't train entrepreneurs. We're not training leaders in the same way that PT and OT do. And we don't train didactic teaching and instructors the way that these other disciplines do. And so that's put us at a bottleneck.
Can you guys talk about how Asha is structured? Like Rinki, you referenced that there's these committees, and there's a lot of turnover, and these people on they're making these decisions, and that's how all of these things get changed. I have no idea how Asha is run on the basis of committees, how people get involved in these committees. Do you volunteer? Do you have to get elected, appointed? Can you just sign? Can you ask to be involved? Just tell us how Asha works.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I know of it. And Dr. Woods, please jump in as well. So Asha has a board of directors that kind of oversees everything, as every nonprofit needs to have. You need to have a board of directors. And then you have a CEO. So Asha has a CEO. We had the same CEO serving for over 20 years and just resigned recently. So we have a new CEO now. And there's a national office staff of employees under that CEO who all work at the national office. And I think their role is more like running the day-to-day operations. Like a lot of them might be SLPs, but might be from completely different backgrounds, like management and marketing and finance, because they have to make this nonprofit organization run. And then, like I said, you have about 45 different committees and councils, and a lot of them could be like profession focused issues. Like every SIG has a coordinating committee. You have a committee for payment models. You have a committee for who gets like professional development, who serves as the next co-chair for convention. So you have different committees doing all of these profession focused things. You have different committees for issue focused things, like just dealing with reimbursement or just advocating for telehealth or whatever it is. So you have different issue focused committees. And then the way to volunteer with these committees, Asha has a form. If you just look up Asha and volunteer, you just submit your interest in serving in a board or a council or a committee, and you basically express why you think you would be a good fit. And some of the things I've volunteered for, I kind of got picked right away. And then some of the things I've had to repeatedly try to apply each year. And I think once you get a foot in the door and start kind of serving in one way with Asha, you network a lot, you learn a lot, people start to recognize your skill set, or you might recognize that you might be a better fit somewhere else in some other committee. And that's how you kind of navigate your way up and um, start to kind of diversify what you're offering as a volunteer. And yeah, if you look up Asha volunteer leadership, Dr. Hazelwood shared that link, or Asha governance structure. This all is kind of available
Yeah.
online. Yeah.
And I just want to kind of piggyback on some of that. I'm like reading comments and making sure I'm answering questions too, because there's some really good comments. So I think of it as Asha is, so you have your kind of two, if you have a tree, right? And then you have the board. The board is elected by the general membership body, right? The board determines the what. The staff determines the how, right?
Yeah.
So the board says this is what we're going to focus on, and the staff, their job is to implement how we do it, right? Then ASHA is subdivided into 6 different types of these committees and these boards, and they also call them councils, which make them confusing. But just remember, I call them the secret 6, actually, because for a long time I didn't know what they were doing. But that's just that's just me using my strategies, my memory strategies. But you have your ad hoc committees, and those are work groups. And so those ad hoc committee is specifically for a specific issue, right?
Yeah.
So there's something that comes on, like there was a COVID ad hoc committee, right? So that's something that, hey, this came up and we need to add it on, deal with something. You have an advisory board, right? And so your advisory board is something that's really, that needs to be like a judicial responsibility. And when there's an action, the advisory board takes up an action that's going to need a lot of thinking, and then they research it and put forth a set of recommendations for the board to consider, right? And so those are your 2 A's. So you got 2 A's, 2 C's, a J, and an F. Like, you can tell I'm neuro because this is literally
Mnemonics. Yeah.
just stay with me. Your 2 years. AACCJS, right? So you have your ad hoc, your advisory, your coordinating committee, and then you have councils. And so the councils directly advise. They're convened by the board, but their job is to advise and plan, right? And so what they do is they propose board policies, and they're the people that develop the standards, right? So all of the different councils say, this is the standard that we should have. We need to do 400 clock hours. That's the mood. That's the color. You know what? Not $3.99, not $4.01, but 400. That needs to be the standard, right? And they carry out those delegated responsibilities by putting it into paper and developing trainings. Then you have your J, which is your joint committee. So those are when the elected or the appointed people join together. And then if there's something that's a mutual concern, they kind of fill in the gaps. So if there's something between academia and practice, or private practice and academia, or something like that, they come together and do that. And then finally, you have your standing committee, which is when the board of directors says, you know what, there is something special that we need to do. They're kind of like your SEAL team. That's how I call them. They're like the SEAL team. So the standing committee will have a policy, and the board will say, you know what, we're going to put a standing committee that we specifically want you to work on this policy, and you execute this policy. And so there are, like you said, around 45 of them now, but they all do different things, and they are all under the board of directors. So the board of directors is the common thread that weaves everything together, and we as members elect the board of directors. But the board of directors isn't allowed to just go willy-nilly. They have bylaws. Those are operation procedures. And so, but depending on what committee they ask, they can update, change their bylaws, which is a lot of the reasons on how the election process has changed past couple of years.
So yeah, now we can only elect the member at large. We can only elect the speech pathology and audiology member at large. The other board of directors will just be appointed by the other board of directors. So there was a big hue and cry about this, saying why are members not being given the opportunity to elect the people who make all the decisions? And I feel like the explanation for that is just vague language
Let's,
that's
yeah,
confusing.
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because as we are encouraging everyone to vote, which I hope
Yeah.
everyone on this live who can vote has voted or will vote afterwards. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, wait, why are we only voting for one position? Like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is new for a lot of people who have not voted
It's
before.
the first year that this is happening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's explain the change because it was, wait, how long ago was it?
This
When
is the
the
first
hybrid
election.
election, but it
Yeah.
came about a few years ago, right? That it was going to happen, or was it really recently that it
They
changed?
informed members 2 years ago from, I think it was
Okay.
just before COVID that I remember seeing
Mhm.
this kind of becoming a thing in the Facebook groups and people having this conversation. But you're right. I think the first time this change is being implemented is for this election.
Right, right. So kind of talk about what this change is. It's called a hybrid election, right?
Yeah. And so this again was a direct result of a change to the bylaws, right? Because your bylaws are like your constitution. They say, like, this is how elections go, this is how things go. But the ad hoc, they have an ad hoc committee, which was a direct, again, a direct committee to deal with an issue. And that ad hoc committee recommended that we move to a hybrid election in order to ensure diversity. I think this is another example with our organization of intent versus impact.
Yep.
Right? The
Because
intent.
I don't get the logic of how this would
The
promote.
intent was to ensure diversity on the board. And so what was happening was, and I think what disenchanted a lot of people, like Rinki, you said how you summed it up a couple of minutes ago when you said, I kind of started volunteering, and then you notice you kind of get picked for one, and then you kind of keep getting picked, and you kind of it's easier to get in.
Yeah.
That was a lot of people were getting disenchanted with that, right? And then also, again, you saw the same kind of pool of people moving in the same circles. And it's really easy if only a fraction of the population vote. Everybody kind of, the feedback was, man, popularity contest,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know if we all nominate so-and-so, it's only 20 of us voting anyway. So the goal was to change it, and so that people could submit nominations for people to get, for people to be on the slate. Like, for example, a certain amount of people had to put my name in
Mm-hmm.
for me to get
Like
elected.
Nominated.
How many?
I don't know. I have a feeling it was this group of people I was at happy hour with because we were like drinking. You know what? What would you fresh? And I was like, you know what I'm gonna say. And then I was like, ooh.
This is important for someone who's watching to be like, okay, I want to run one day. What are the qualifications if I just can't sign up online and I need to be nominated?
So what they do is they do a call for nominations. They do a call for nominations, and then they send it out. And then if you want to nominate someone, just like you got that email with the election thing, they were like, call for nominations, who do you want, board member, and then they put all the qualifications. They do
you need to have like established leadership experience, because I think on the other side I'm seeing clinicians who want these positions more for the fame and the name of, or just feigning expertise, like, hey, I'm just out of CF, but because I have a 5,000 person following, I should be on this committee. If you can do it, I can do it. Or again, I think with us being persons of color, I've had questions like, why you? Were you just, I've had it basically suggested that I was selected for a committee probably because I checked off a diversity box, or just making me feel like the skills I brought to the table were not enough.
That's a whole separate chat, and that's really, that's extremely rude.
But you can imagine how that might, I was just 24 at the time, and it definitely turned me off. But it could make people who want to have a voice or want to volunteer feel like maybe I'm just not good enough because yeah, I shouldn't even try doing this again because I'm not good enough. Or
Mhm.
again, people who feel like they should be at a certain place because they look a certain way, or they have this 10,000 person following, but have done nothing to demonstrate years of leadership and experience like Dr. Williams has.
Yeah, and so you know what, I love you. I know it's early, but you just before I get weird, I do want to extrapolate two things from what you just said. So one thing that I want to get into, that's it's going to be that we should really talk about, is this imposter syndrome and how it's curated in our field. I think we really need to get,
Yes.
because often that is being manipulated against us because we're in a health and caregiving type field. But first, I will just kind of break down the process for me getting nominated. I joke a lot, but it has been an extensive process of vetting. So you get nominated, they send you an email, and the email says, "Hi, you've been nominated by a group of people." They don't tell you how many or who. If you want to accept this nomination, please fill out kind of like a skills qualifier. And that skills qualifier it's a pretty long application. And so they send you a list of the requirements and the skills, and they send you the application where you have to map where your skills put. How many committees have you served on? What entrepreneurial leadership skills have you had? And you also have to generate references. So they do have people that have to speak to your leadership skills. They have to speak to
People
your.
that are Asha, that are on in high level Asha positions.
No, it's almost just
Okay.
like a job. It's almost like a job. So it might not have to be a national member. It could be someone that you might have served on another board with. I know for me, I took extensive coursework at Kellogg School of Business and Northwestern in organizational behavior and leadership. So I wanted to talk about my experience in governing bodies. So that's not an ASHA person, right? So I had that
Yeah.
right mind, right? Person is an entrepreneur, right? Those are a set of skills that are really needed within ASHA. People that have a business mindset, because
Yeah.
those people that know, like, no, that doesn't add up, right? And so those are the types of people you get to write recommendations. And then you have to write a series of essays. So I did have to write a series of essays attesting to my leadership experience, my experience with equity and governing large initiatives, project management experience. So those types of skills. So you do those, and then it gets reviewed by a committee. And so then you kind of have to pass that review process after you get nominated. So I think the intent was to say, okay, because like you said, these people are just getting nominated either because, me and my circle of friends who are tenure track faculty at the same university for the past 100 years just keep throwing each other's name in the hat, or I just finished my CF and I have 200 followers and, I don't really, I just want to try. It gave them the opportunity to go through, and they speaking with them, they actually give feedback on people who weren't accepted, which is a new thing. So they say, hey, I just want to, I want to tell you that you might not have been picked this time, but we think you could start here. And I have had that experience before in running for other things, which is why I'm on committees where people will reach out and say, I know we didn't put you here, or you didn't get elected to this one, but we do have this opening here, and this could be a very good springboard for you if you're interested in this leadership. So they wanted to do more of that, and that's why they made the process a little bit more arduous in terms of getting nominated, submitting an application. Then once you submit your application, they say, okay, you meet the qualifications. Now, this was the thing that was weird for me. It was like, now here are the terms. And so the terms, I almost didn't get to this point because it was a lot of terms. I was like, are they going to have me sign an NDA? Like, this is deep. It was just pages of things of, how you have to speak, how you have to represent ASHA, how you can campaign, the types of things you can say when you're campaigning. You're not, like, for example, you're not allowed to, you can only announce in the ASHA community boards that you are running one time. And then You can't buy a button that says your name on it. You can't, it's just all these sets of things that you have to know in terms of your image. You have to shoot this commercial and you have to say, speak to certain things, and it has to be within a certain time. So it was very structured in that way. And they have a person who's assigned to the election. She's very nice. But it kind of like guides you through to make sure that you are in alignment with everything. And so that's been my experience, but I think that kind of helps lift the veil.
Yeah, exactly. Some transparency.
Mm-hmm.
It's refreshing to know the process, and especially if you're someone who eventually wants a leadership role in Asha, this hopefully gives you some insight on what you're up for, right? Or what the process might be like, and then also maybe where to start. So I think that that's something that is right about this process, is the feedback to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you were not selecting you this time, but to run, but how about, serving on this committee or doing this or a few more leadership opportunities or highlight more of your blank, blank, blank skills. However, caveat, however you want to say it.
Classy.
Think about people from marginalized populations, right? Already not having access to these types of experience. It's like somebody applying for a job and they're like, you need experience. So you're like, I'm trying to get experience though.
Yeah.
No one will let me get experience.
Right. Circle.
So it's a circle. So the part of that, what you just revealed, was I liked, and part of it I'm like, but this kind of is not good for marginalized populations.
But you can start somewhere. Like I started on the editorial just as a reviewer for Perspectives publications, like one review every 3 months or something, and then you can
post.
Yeah, it's you don't need a lot of experience for that. Obviously, you need some clinical experience and need to show that you have a good command over understanding research and reading manuscripts. But other than that, you don't need a crazy amount of leadership experience, but you kind of work your way up from there. Or you can be on a topic committee for reviewing submissions that come to Asha. And again, most clinicians can do that. Yeah, and then, keep submitting your name. And I would just say, I think you need to do that with intent, and not just because it's something you want to add to your resume, or just because it's something you want to use because you run a business and you want to show that you're affiliated with Asha in some way. I think we need leaders who are very intentional about why they want to lead and what vision they have for the future and what kind of change they're trying to create for whatever cause they stand for. And that's going to make the difference, not just trying to check off this one box on your resume.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Very, very good point.
All right, so moving on, we got a few more questions. When are elections now?
You have until July 20th.
July 20th, the elections close. Someone asked, and somebody already responded in the comments about how do we get to see people's bios who are running, and it's on Asha's website, and
can I read this person? This person said, how do we even start? Speech direct therapy said, how do we even start to get Asha to listen? I threaten to withhold my dues until they address their racism/failure to support SOPs. I was threatened right back that I would be nothing without them. And so I have a clarifying question. Who threatened you? Can you, and we can keep going, but can you clarify, someone in leadership threatened you that you would be nothing?
So yeah, hopefully that person will answer that question. But this idea of withholding dues is not new. It's something that has been in like different Facebook groups, and we should just stop paying Asha until they blank 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 blank. I don't know what the right answer is, because that is going up against an entity such as that. We just literally talked about if you're early in your career, right? Needing or that those C's or the membership being good for resumes, good for employment purposes. Now, if you're someone who's seasoned and you already have experience and you already have had, the things that you want, then I don't know, maybe you can withhold your dues, but it would take, think about how many people it would take to do that though, for that to actually be effective. I don't see it being effective, but you all chime in.
Yeah, I want to harken back to what Rinki said, which I think was very powerful, is that leading with intentionality. What's the intent? I think once you get to a place of where you feel like if I have to threaten something that I'm paying, then we've already kind of lost, right?
Yeah.
That's just my feeling. Because when we start playing chicken, right, with organizations that our dollars support, I think we have to kind of go deeper with that. And I think, what is the intent? What is the outcome, right? And it sounds like what I've heard is that, we're all frustrated. We've all been at different levels of frustration along the continuum about different things. And what I hear is that I know, and I've talked to Vicki Deal Williams about this, where, it seems like it's anger, but I think it's all anger. I don't. I think it looks like anger, but really you have confusion, you have frustration, you have helplessness, you have shame, you have all of these different things. And that's why I wanted to talk about that imposter syndrome and how that aligns with intention. A lot of speech language pathologists, just by the sheer makeup of who we are, how our profession has formed, and the people that are in our profession have been so conditioned by imposter syndrome that we don't believe that we even have a right to ask questions. We are already going into rooms thinking that we don't belong there and that we're not qualified to be there. And if it was any other type of organization, like an all-white male organization, I feel like they would have been, whether they knew it or not, and I think that we have to really look at ourselves and look at, wow, who told me that I was not good enough? And that brings me back to this person who just said, how does CAA accreditation process, I'm not really good at reading people's Instagram names. Dat5 says, how does the accreditation process affect students? Well, it affects students at a core level, right? Because you have to come out of an accredited university in order to get your licensure, right? And usually in order to get some part of the C's process. If there are exceptions if a university is in process. But also the accreditation process dictates what we're putting into the minds of our future providers. So just like the bylaws of Asha dictate what's happening in Asha, the accreditation process says, in order to make speech pathologists, you have to do A, B, C, D. In order to make a speech pathologist, this is what you have to do. And these programs take that, and that is what they use, and that is what they go by when they make every policy, every syllabus, every test, every hurdle, every gate is dictated by the accreditation process. So that's how it affects students.
And, like we going backwards about how a certain percentage needs to have PhDs, right? But then they don't have any teaching experience. They're researchers. And so you got a whole bunch of young clinicians in our DM saying, I don't know anything about COG-COM. I have a COG patient. Can you help me? What I'm saying? They say we didn't have anybody to teach COG-COM. We didn't have a textbook on COG-COM. Can you share resources on COG-COM? And it's like, wait, what? And I wonder if it's because there were no people with PhDs, right? Not enough for these accredited programs, but the professors have PhDs. Well, maybe you need some people without some PhDs in these programs who have been on the front line who can
or
really
let
tell
people
the students how to treat COD-COM.
absolutely. And so I will say one thing about our program at DePaul where we're different, which I think was really funny. So DePaul's program is a brand new program. We just accepted our first cohort last fall. And one of the seminal pieces is that every single person practices. That's the rule. Everybody practices. If you're tenure track, you practice. Everybody carries a caseload. Now, depending on how much research load you have, you might have a smaller caseload. But everybody carries a caseload because we really we're in Chicago. You got to have people that are practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went up for our first CAA site visit, they were like, you're never going to be able to get enough faculty. Like, this is too much. You're putting too much on people. But I think the opposite has happened. It's opened us up because we're able to pull people. Like I said, I was in the #1 rehab hospital opening their COVID unit in 2020. And then in 2021, I was building this clinical education program. And so I'm able to be like, and roll the clip. So this is what happens when a person that has post-COVID long hauler syndrome is getting, able to do that during COD-COM. I'm able to do that and give those types of things. I'm able to make those connections and say, let's get everybody speak out trained, because you guys are going to need to do vocal amplitude based training at some point in your lives. Let's do that in college. And so that is very new, but that is not typically how academic programs have been structured. They usually are very siloed, where the clinical people are on this side and the research and teaching people are on this side, and they don't really intertwine. And so that really impacts students, because sometimes there have been teachers that have not practiced. They have not had a caseload of 60 kids in an elementary school and had 30 IEPs. And you're like, you're making them do these 80-page evals. That's not real.
That ain't real life. That's not real life.
Can we come back to some? I guess this started with discussing solutions, right? And I was more optimistic than I am now, but I'm still on the optimistic side of things. And I feel like there's a lot of important conversations happening for change. I think social media has changed the world now, where you can ask questions and hold people at Asha accountable. We can hold businesses accountable. We can have these conversations that the 39 people watching will tell 39 other people that they spoke about all these things, and we need to care enough. And I think even in just the 10 years that I've been a clinician, people were kind of planting these seeds of change, like in different parts of the forest, and couldn't see each other and hoped one day that the trees will grow and become a forest. But now there's like 50 more people doing the same thing, and then there'll be 500. And I think if enough of us speak up and ask the right questions, encourage engagement, we're not just here to bash Asha. We're saying there are issues, there are member needs that are not being addressed, and what can we do to create these solutions? And I think we're doing that right now. We are. This conversation is creating solutions.
Yeah, so optimistic, because what's telling me is that this is not, I think it's such a cop-out when people say, oh, people just don't care, they're not engaged. No, it's not that they're not engaged. Oh, people just get angry. No, I think whenever I talk to people, and that under that guise of, oh, they're angry, no, they're frustrated because they don't understand how they can make an impactful change, and they want to so bad.
Yes.
And so even with discussing the structure of how things go, one of the things that I think is, for me, serving has been so challenging. And I think talking to people, if we were to think of if you could take away one strategy, how you can impact change, is that we talked about ad hoc committees being very specific for dealing with targeted issues. We have a lot of targeted issues across Asha. It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
And so looking at, instead of saying, hey, Asha, do this, Asha's going to say, we have an ad hoc committee for that. And so we really have to target these ad hoc committees and say, hey, okay, like, for example, I'm going to pull up one. There's
this is good.
There's an committee on bilingual language competence and service committee, and there are people on that committee. and there's a liaison. You can email the liaison and say, hey, and you can also pull their committee reports, right? So for example,
Yep.
for the ad hoc committee on graduate education for speech language pathologists, pull their report and write to them and have your, say, hey, you know what? I supervised students last quarter and I noticed they were not prepared to do practical things. And I think that's directly linked to the fact that blah, 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 blah. I see in your committee report that you're charged to deal with this and that you are looking into blah, blah, blah. I'd like to offer and engage with them in that way, direct issues. There's an ad hoc committee on governance.
Strategic.
Yeah, there's an ad hoc committee on governance review, and they have reports. And so we don't like the way elections say, hey, you know what? I voted in the last election, or I did this, and I continue to think that we need to refine. There's an ad hoc committee on health reform and alternative payment models, which is a huge thing. We're not getting reimbursed, the drug levels, all of these things. We can read, and I think that's too, it can be very daunting, right? We say, well, man, I want to get active and I'm frustrated, but I don't even know where to start. The one thing about nonprofits is they have to post all of their reports. And so even with, and I put this document into the chat right now, because this is probably one of the most powerful documents that
Yes, and it may not be the easiest to find, but it's there.
I think Dr. Hazelwood just posted it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me put it in here.
Megan, did you want to jump in? I feel like we've all kind of just been
Here to learn.
sharing our thoughts, and I know Megan has a lot to say as well.
I don't have a lot to say. I just want to, I will warn everybody on this panel that I will be asking for round 2. And if people want to back me up in the comments, if we want to do this.
It's so much to cover. And I said it was only going to be an hour, but it's like, we still had questions and
Solutions. So we need to talk solutions.
And we can talk solutions. So I just dropped a document in the chat for everyone to read. It's public. I want to make sure everybody got it. It's Asha's assets and financial reports, right? Because we know all nonprofit organizations, in order to get those lovely tax write-offs and those government subsidies, they have to publish their report. So Asha has to publish a 40-page report when they file their taxes. And so in that taxes, they have to provide something called a statement of their financial position. They also have to give a statement on their functional expenses. And so for me as a business person, and I know there are so many entrepreneurs on this call, this is where the entrepreneurs, I'm excited because there's nothing like an entrepreneur to be like, that's not where the money is. You can give us all of these bylaws and stuff, but we're like, no.
Where's the money going?
Where's the money going? And so sometimes that's where I think there's so much opportunity for young people and people that are, you have people that, and I don't want to dismiss people that have thousands of followers, because those are business people in this day and age. People that are monetizing social media are the new age of business people. Those are the people that can look at these finances and say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So, and they also have to be audited by a third party. So Asha does have a third party that audits their financial statements and read them. Make sure they make sense. If you are passionate about healthcare reform or what kind of monies we're giving to things, like for me, I got really aggravated when I said, you know what, there are 572 people in SIG group 2, neurogenic disorder SIG group, right? And when I asked if we could give away 2 free learning passes, they said we didn't have the money for it. And so I took out my little calculator and said, well, $45 a year times 572 is over $25,000.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no accountant, but you're telling me that you can't give away we can't get 2 learning passes out of that budget. And then they say, well, because they're expensive. And then I said, well, we ask questions, and this happens in meetings all the time. What's the cost of it?
Right.
And one of the things that I think we need to talk about is the double dipping, right? The Asha Learning Pass is composed of people who mostly volunteer to put stuff up there.
Yeah.
Right? So I have been told in meetings and gotten into wild debates with people because I said, well, why is this too expensive? Well, it's $145. No, that's not how much it costs. That's how much you sell it for.
Right.
But I'm a organization. So how much does it cost? No, it's not. My shirt costs $40, but it probably costs 30 cents to make.
Correct.
You're not going to charge, you know what I mean? That makes no sense. And so that's
why we need business people.
This is why. So when I tell you, like, the
questions.
people that run businesses need to, like, really be the people running things, is because practitioners and stuff that develop maybe practice standards and stuff, they won't get that. But I know a business person, the person that has a blog, the person that has that a private practice is going to say, that doesn't cost.
It baffled me when you said it, because I was like, how is giving away something that you already own? Like, it didn't make sense. Like, it's by you. You're not purchasing it.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, I don't get it. So I paid the dude to be a part of this. And then I got to pay at cost for the learning pass that I volunteered and already recorded a lecture on TBI on. That doesn't make any sense, right? Yeah. Or from an academic perspective, right? We say that we want to have recruit underrepresented groups to hold faculty positions, right? So ASHA has that thing where you can say minority faculty search, right? Where it sends out an email where if you are at a university, they'll post your faculty position. Not for free, right? We wanted to post, this just happened today. We wanted to post that we wanted to hire a Black and brown person to be a tenure track faculty member. We contacted ASHA, hey, can you post this to your minority faculty shirts? They said, sure, that'll be $150. And we said, well, what's that for? Well, we'll take your link and we'll email it out to all of the people who identify as an underrepresented group.
That's the opposite.
That's free.
That's get more people from underrepresented groups.
So I have
the math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing, right? Because we're a new program trying to get faculty. We have a marketing budget for everything. And we have to be, and the whole university is going to say, you paid $150 to your own governing body to send an email? And we're going to like, yeah. And then we say, well, we also wanted it in the magazine too. Oh, that's an extra.
That's $1,000. Yeah, that's another $1,000 or $1,000.
Like, but didn't I already pay for the magazine? Because we all had to be ASHA members to work here. So that's what I mean when I say we have to follow the money, because and I will tell you an outcome of the meeting. So right with the ASHA Learning Pass, I raised this question, acted a fool, just like I do on this thing. And the next day they said, well, we'll have to talk to whoever is B. We'll figure. I said, that's not right. If we can't give away the Learning Pass at cost, it's not equitable. And we need to figure out a way to acknowledge people. Mm-hmm. Next day we had a credit at the ASHA Learning Store to pick out whatever we wanted to give, as many gifts as we wanted. So really it's about that, saying people that feel like, no, I have a right to be here. Mm-hmm. I've already paid for this. You have to tell me where my money is going. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to disparage you. I'm not trying to be rude. I just show me the math.
But you know, there's certain people, certain organizations will gaslight people, and it will, no, of course we do this, we do that, we do that, right? And so you kind of have to treat it like a relationship.
Yeah.
Confident and be strategic. Yeah.
Well, but it's never a two-way conversation. Like after they shut down comments on the most recent like anti-abortion statement about not making a statement, they had this whole thing on Facebook, and it's enraged a lot of SLPs who wanted to say something about it. Mm-hmm. ASHA, whoever's in charge of ASHA marketing, I hope they're watching this, because how tone deaf are you to shut down comments? Mm-hmm. We're a field of communication disorders. You deleted comments, you shut down comments, and you basically told speech pathologists they can't have
to be quiet, to not use.
They can't ask questions. They mm-hmm. can't hold you accountable. I think that's when I lost respect for mm-hmm. whatever they promised after the George Floyd incident, whatever they promised about anti-racism, whatever they're promising now. It's just so disappointing to see that post after post after post of questions are being deleted or shut down because they
Mhm.
are unwilling to have this
Oh,
conversation.
so things were deleted. I knew it was
Hmm.
shut down. And what I found, and I agree with you, Rinki, like what I found, that actually I stopped way before it was the previous president, when I think it was after the George Floyd thing and everybody was really angry and upset that we hadn't made a statement, that we came out with this like wiggity whack statement, and everybody was
Yeah.
like, this is embarrassing. And then I remember that the former CEO or president came out with this big, the front of the thing was like the the something of civility, the importance of civility, and at
Civility toolkit. Yeah.
yeah, the civility toolkit. And I don't think I've ever been so professionally insulted and gaslighting at tone police, right? Especially as a Black woman, where whenever you speak up, you're the angry Black woman, and
Yep.
your civility. I thought it was just so incredibly racist. But
Mhm.
I think that there's this line, right? And I kind of what you mentioned earlier of a lot of people who are on the front lines in Asha doing the work are the people who are fielding these comments.
Yeah.
And so I do, in talking with them, and I have talked to people that monitor these, and Asha actually just got a new director of communications because
Yeah.
the person, they wanted to go in a new direction. And so a lot of times these people are reading this and it does get to them, and they're like, well, and they take it personally.
Yeah.
Man, I volunteered and I do all of this. And so the people that are kind of in the they never even have to see it. They're not looking at it, but the volunteers and things. And so I think we have to eliminate this us versus them type of thing. I also think that when we talk about, like you said, people's voices, and I was sharing this with Dana the other day, and I was sharing this with some other people. I happened to come across a couple of speech pathologist IGs, not personal, but I am a speech pathologist. I run a practice. That's what my IG is about. That was, hooray, Roe versus Wade is gone, or yay,
Yeah.
yes, Trump election was stolen. And so that really, for me, of course, all of our people, they're saying the same stuff on their IGs, but you have to think somebody in Ashes is looking and a liking, like they're like, no, this is good. You know what I mean? So
Oh,
they're
for sure. Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that this is very telling. And when, I don't know who said it, but when people show you who they are, believe them. So for me, this was like yet another reminder, like we really have to make our presence known, because there are many people that are like, yes, this is great. Yes,
Well,
don't say anything. And those are the people that unfortunately have the control right now.
Yeah.
yeah, I think what was most disappointing was that with the whole statement that wasn't a statement that Asha put out regarding the Supreme Court decision, was that it did not acknowledge how this affects our field.
Yeah.
Even if you, no matter what your political beliefs are, no matter what your morality says, or your personal beliefs, it's that this is a professional issue because it impacts patients. This is a professional issue because it impacts the workforce. This is a professional issue because it affects diversity, marginalized populations, salaries, the economy. And so some acknowledgement would, at the very least, would have been warranted, but it just shows how out of touch that
Yes.
act is, by not acknowledging that. Like, you are not on the front lines. You do not understand my caseload. You do not understand, how this changes the game for me and my family and my money and my pocketbooks, and, and everything like that. And so, some acknowledgement that, oh, this would be an opportunity for an ad hoc committee, or, oh, this, we need to do some research on this, or, oh, yeah, let's kind of have a town hall discussion about this, or let's kind of sit back. But no, it was the same day, within hours of the Supreme Court decision, that they released a statement that was not a statement that basically said, our name Bennett, we ain't in it. And that, my friends, is disappointing. Even if I'm pro-life, right?
Yeah.
Even
It's
if
just, yeah, I think
pro-life or pro-choice.
you raised such a good point. Like that saying, if people don't think you care, they're not going to care what you think. People need to know that Asha sees them and that Asha can meet them
Yeah.
at wherever that may be along the continuum, right? Obviously, I have my own set of beliefs. I have my own set of politics or whatever, but in being the member at large, I represent all of the membership. And so in order to lead, and especially, again, this is, I mean, not to show a bias towards business owners, but I'm like, this is why we need business owners. When you're a business owner, you have people working for you. You have to bring a whole bunch of people together that may have a whole bunch of different ideologies, work ethics, and beliefs, and accomplish a common goal. And the way you do that is make sure that everybody feels seen. People need to feel seen. And there's a lot of people who feel like, even, and so for me, speaking, I have many friends and many people that I respect so much that work in Asha, work for national offices, are way higher up on committees than I am. And I see how hard they work. And it really saddens me, right? Because for me, if people are working this hard, but people still feel this way, then that means there's this huge gap, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of like, if you're doing all of this work and the outcome is this, at what point are we going to say, hey, we're not attacking, but I mean, I see people that are like up all night, and I mean, they are working hard for Asha. They are working hard for SOPs. They watch these, they write, and they try so hard, and it can be so deflating when people are just constantly unhappy, right? And so I think that as an organization, we need to stop and say, okay, these issues are not new. I can't think of one thing that we've talked about that has probably us over. Asha's gonna be 100 years old next year.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? And I don't think any of these things are really new,
Yeah. I think this is a good, I don't know when IG is going to cut us off. Yeah, so I think this is kind of a good stopping point, pausing point, to kind of, I mean, if you all are on board with the round two, where we only talk about solutions, right? I think we've done a really good job of explaining the structure, providing people with resources, a better insight into some policies and procedures. I think that has been set in stone tonight, but for someone who's a new grad, someone who's an undergrad right now, someone who may be a business owner, and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. I'm good with numbers. I'm good with leadership. I'm good with that. I think it would be really imperative for them to have actionable steps or some guidance on what they could do to be more involved, right? Or serve in different capacities. Because I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge and just where to start, and lack of confidence too.
It's a lack of confidence. Also, I think we tend to oversimplify the issue, because this is where I think it has to be a relationship. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I've met with people in Asha before I even decided to be on the slate. I was like, I want to call the person who's doing this, and I want to call Vicky, and I want to see like what it's about. I don't have Vicky's number, so I emailed her, and I was like, hi Vicky, I'm treasurer. I got nominated to this. I'm not sure. Can I talk to you? She called me on her cell phone and was like, yeah, oh my God, nobody ever asked to talk to me. And I was asking her, about vision, about what it's like, about what to do, and she just listened to me, and she answered all my questions. But what I learned is that what my takeaway was, she didn't say this, but this is my takeaway. We have an identity crisis in Asha. We don't really know who we are. And I think that that's really hard to make a solution, because if half of the people think something's a problem and the other half don't think there's a problem, the solutions are two different things. And so I think if anything, before we could even go to solutions, I think in terms of strategizing, we have a lot of things that have been raised, but we have not, we've gone from dialogue, but we haven't really made that transition to decision making. And so we have dialogue about these things, but then we don't decide what's going to be the priority. I can't tell you what the priority is right now. I can tell you what the strategic vision for Asha is, right?
Yeah.
That's right. And they choose their priorities. But when we talk about people that are like, yeah, we don't like that, we haven't really given a response. We haven't said, okay, well, these are our priorities. When I talk to people, they're like, the acknowledgement, it's the themes, the acknowledgement. Yes, Meredith Poole Hero said far too many priorities.
And it's different for everyone because our scope of practice is so wide.
And so what Asha is able to do really, really well is that they know, hey, I got to pick 4 or 5 strategic objectives, and then we got to go. We can only have 45 committees, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we're not happy, we're like, we don't get paid enough. Our caseloads are too big. Healthcare reform is going to hell. Academia is too many of this. Licensure isn't right. Dues are too high. So I think we really have to think, and I would love to engage with people in a part 2 and just really think like, how do we choose a priority? And I think that making that decision then opens the door to strategically choose a solution. Because some people, I mean, like you said, this healthcare thing just impacts them so heavily, right? But some care people, I don't have time to worry about healthcare. I got 75 kids I got to see, and I got to write 80 IEPs. That doesn't even have anything to do with me. And some people are in academia and are like, I'm just trying to get PhDs and some of these issues. So I think we have to figure out a common priority that could give us, and like how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's just what I see as a person going into leadership, is that there's like a stack of things, but I don't really hear from membership a consensus of, okay, what's our top 3? What's our top 5?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys
So
hear?
I think one priority that sums everything up is you need to improve your ability to communicate with members, listen to member concerns, improve transparency. So I think if one of your priorities truly is member communication and making that a two-way process, even if they sent out a survey, the way they send us the reminder for dues or the way they send us donations for Ash Foundation or the PAC, if I got a letter saying, hey, can you write back and tell me what are your top 3 concerns as a med SLP, as a school-based SLP, whatever you're doing in your life, the board wants to hear from you. I think even that would have such a powerful psychological impact on someone to think, oh, they actually care. I don't mind paying now because they actually are listening to me. Then you could have a laundry list of 100 things, and then you start attacking that one by one and come together and figure out what the priorities. But you're not even listening. Like how?
I think this came up last IG live about they'll ask us questions like, what's your race? What's your age? What's your setting? But they never ask anything about us as people, right? What do you value? What are your priorities? If you these 3, if you are you more worried about salary or caseload? Are you more worried about this or that? This needs to be some kind of questionnaire, some kind of survey where they can really get in touch with the people, because they're out of touch. As a collective, Asha is out of touch. And I think we've kind of spoken to kind of why, because the majority of people who have time for Asha, who have the energy for Asha, who can take off from work and take these roles and do that stuff like that, they tend to be of a certain demographic and a certain age group, right? So they tend to be older white women, and their priority, an older white woman does not have the same priorities as me as a young Black woman. Single, no, it's different. So Asha needs to take inventory of that.
Values and chime in the chat, because I just love here. I'm writing all of these notes down. So Rinki says her number 1 would be improve communication with members. Everyone else, can you chime in? Everybody put in the chat, what would your number 1 thing be? Said your number 1 thing would be communication for Asha, trying to learn your values and you said something else. Values, not demographic like collection, but
Priorities.
Priorities, your challenges. Yeah, if for someone it could be productivity, for someone it could be I need more awareness about my role, for someone else it could be just better reimbursement for our services. I think that just listening just will open up solutions because they'll even identify what the problems are. They don't even know what the problems are right now.
So what do you think, Megan, what would be your number one? And I'm reading the chat too.
Oh, well, I have a bee in my bonnet these days about private equity in healthcare, and because I think that's what's reducing the CMS reimbursement rate.
Oh yeah, private
Mm-hmm.
equity. So that would be your number one, healthcare. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so communication, private healthcare, values and priorities. Anything else in the chat? I'm looking. What's your number one? Put your number one in the chat. If Asha was like, okay, everybody, top 3, we're going to work on these top 3 for the next 6 months, what would be your top 3?
I think people are like, where do we even start?
Anything that drives SOP salary.
But you know what? It's so beautiful, and I'm going to give people time to do this.
Better reimbursement and just even marketing.
Yeah.
Well, because I run an
more transparency.
Yeah, transparent.
When we share this record,
double transparency.
I'm gonna snapshot these and I'll send it to you so that way I know we lose comments when in the recording, right?
Productivity, which I think kind of goes into that private equity and healthcare, right? Because we can't. That's whole. Yeah, productivity.
On a case for people who are watching this later can type things in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, productivity. The encroachment of our scope of practice by others.
Yes.
Woo-hoo! Celtic City, I like you. What's that, a cat?
That is an elephant in the room that we need to discuss. Boundaries,
so scope,
roles.
Just encroachment. That's going to be my word of the week. Okay.
Online businesses.
Right. You call it and say, yes, encroachment. That's how that's what I said. I like that word. Encroachment.
So
diversity and equity in the field and the same academic program. So you see, even in a chat of 27 people, 30 plus us, right? 31. Even in a chat of 31 people, we all have different number ones. Mm-hmm. So I think this is like just such a powerful exercise. But that, to me, that means we need an ad hoc committee on like setting priorities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we, you know.
But this is the thing. Why does it take 4 people volunteering their time on IG on a Monday night? This should be the role of Asha. Asha should be hosting something.
Yes.
Somebody. Anne-Marie. Hi, Anne-Marie. She says, transparent. Anne-Marie and I have had many of Bitch Festival in the hallway. And we used to work together. Transparency. Where do they get it? Who are their sponsorships? That's really. I also think they need to decide whether they're going to act as a regulatory body or not, because they try to be both. Yes and no, depending on when that's a very good point, right? Is there a conflict of interest in doing that? We know there was, because after a lawsuit, we've kind of point,
yeah.
Right? But yeah, that's a very good point.
They don't regulate what businesses do, but they take thousands of dollars in corporate partnerships from the same businesses, and they allow those businesses to become Asha CEU providers without vetting them, knowing the concerns about them, and they let those businesses market to clinicians. And I recently had a conversation with one of the key people who makes decisions about these corporate sponsorships and about CEU provision, and I just feel like the concerns fell on deaf ears. And I think that even if the intention is good to do the job well, they're just not clinicians. They don't know how these things are impacting patients and patients' lives. You can't empathize. You can only empathize so much with the problem that you've never faced. Like you can shed a tear and move on.
That. Hold on, I'll write that down.
You haven't lived the problem, so they just don't have any idea how dangerous this is and how much worse it's going to get if we don't speak up.
That's a very good point. You can only empathize so much with a problem you never face. Ivory Ann Woolley says, and the amount of therapy per patient is reducing productivity. Yeah. And so one thing you said, Dana, that I thought was really powerful, where you said, why did it take 4 people to do this? So, and I hate to harp on voting, but the board of directors set the strategic vision for the organization. So when you vote for people on the board, and when people say, why are you running for SOP, to harken back to what Rinki said, when people are like, I'm voting because I had all of these positions before and I was the prom queen and I am, and you want to vote for people that have, I want more this. I actually, if you look in my bio, my number one thing is increased transparency. So that, to me, that's what I think is the most important thing, is increasing member engagement through transparency and more equitable practices, right? But other people who are running may have other priorities. Theirs might be high caseloads. Theirs might be, and some of them, it's nothing. It's just, like you said, I just kind of I like this on my resume. I don't really have a platform, and so I think that these conversations do happen. But we elect people to the board of directors that don't represent. You have to vote your values. If you elect people to your board and they're like, I'm really into healthcare, or I'm really into only working about school stuff, or I'm only into this stuff, or I'm just here for the vibes, then you're gonna get really watered down strategic objectives that lack specificity, or you're going to get strategic objectives that don't align with your priorities. So I think, to answer your question, that is why we're here, because and I want to put that in the chat. I'm going to put the Asha's current strategic vision, because the priorities that they're working on right now is,
and drop that. So I want to kind of wrap up. Ooh, I don't know how long IG list you have a lot.
I think we're at 90 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do a part 2. We can take a breath for now, but this was great. Great conversation.
Thank you so much, Megan, Rinki, and Treasure, for joining me. I think this was an amazing discussion. I cannot wait for part 2. I think everyone has homework.
Yes. In the chat right now. So this is our homework for next time. All 35 of us plus 4. I'm putting Asha's strategic pathways in the chat. Read them. Read them about what we're doing, about the strategic objectives. Right now, one thing I didn't hear is interprofessional education and interprofessional practice. Nobody said that. But guess what? That's a big objective, right? International engagement. Nobody in this chat said that. But guess what? That's what we're focusing on until we reelect a whole new board, right? Like, so when we say, where's this disconnect? Because people are working hard.
They're working, but not on the things that some people
that actually matter.
Yeah. So, okay, homework, vote. Everybody needs to vote. It's no reason not to, when there are clear bios and backgrounds on the website. Everyone needs to, the documents that have been dropped in the chat, somebody posted the governing structure of Asha. Somebody posted the volunteer opportunities, like someone else posted the details on what a hybrid election is, what it means, everything like that. Treasure, you just dropped a gem as well about our priorities.
You laugh. You're like, what?
They're ours. I mean, they're our priorities.
Dana, people are asking if the live is going to be saved. You're going to save it to your profile, right?
I'm saving it, and I will try to distribute it and tag all 3 of you. And I hope people can watch the replay. And yeah, I guess we'll start planning a part 2, you guys. The people have
And if everyone attending can also come up with one solution, that solution could be advocating for instrumentals, it could be about DEI, it could be about IEPs, whatever you think is one small local or national level change you can make, I really think that would be a very productive and powerful conversation. Let's just
Ab-
talk solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to everyone who came out. I took lots of notes. Please send me a message on IG. I want to hear ideas. So
And go vote.
Go
and
Yes.
go vote. Thanks, Dana, for hosting.
No, thank
Dana.
you for joining. This was beautiful. This was beautiful. Till next time.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.